So here we are. Yesterday was a fabulous day. We had the Holland and Holland shoot organised by my dear friend Tom Spanner, and it was incredible. We raised a substantial amount of money to build another 3 schools, and we had the pleasure of having Jim Ziolkowski, founder of buildOn, fly in from the US on his way to Senegal to be with us yesterday at the shoot. And so there just seemed like the perfect opportunity to organise a fireside chat, which is quite literally, we do have a fireside here. What I wanted to do was spend some time with Jim talking about the buildOn methodology and why it's so successful. Because over the years, since we built our first schools together in 2014, I've had many people ask me, they say, so why do you choose buildOn, and why, how did that come to be? And I say, well, I've never built schools. I know you hadn't when you started, but now you've got a lot of experience with 2,354. There we are.
But who's counting?
So you have the experience now, but when we wanted to make a real impact by building schools, we thought it would be really smart just to find the market leader. And we found you. And the more I understood about what you did and the success that you'd had, it was abundantly clear to me that between buildOn and the competition, there was just sort of clear waters, right? And when we're talking to potential donors or funders, people that want to donate to the 100 Schools project, I think there's a lot of concern because of things like corruption.
Sure.
And the school doesn't get built, and if it does get built, there's no teachers or people don't show up. So I'm interested, I think the reason I wanted to do this and meet with you here was to sort of capture for people that are watching this fireside chat why it works so well, and why it's an astonishing statistic to be over 2,300 built and only 2 not functioning, and natural disasters being the reason. I mean, that's a pretty impressive track record. So what is it, in simple terms, for people watching this short video, what is it that makes it work so well?
Well, I think it's, in simple terms, it's simple. It's straightforward. What we do is we put the communities in charge. You know, communities organize and lead these projects. They elect leadership committees of 6 women and 6 men. That committee is commissioned to go out and organize the community to contribute all the unskilled labor to build the school from the ground up. And they rally these communities.
Do you give them a playbook for that?
No. We have a series of 3 or 4 community meetings before we break ground on any school. And at the first meeting, we explain the methodology, and we also ask them to gather themselves and elect a leadership committee. And then from there, they elect the committee. They gather locally available materials, sand, for mixing the concrete and the cement with, things like that. But we provide the rebar, the cement, all of the materials, the roof sheeting to build the school. We provide the engineering, and we have a team of skilled labor that's embedded in the village. But this leadership committee runs the project. The community contributes all the unskilled labor, which is 2,000 to 3,000 volunteer work days per school. And as we just said, we've built 2,354 schools, but the more important metric is that community members have contributed 4 million volunteer work days to build these schools. We're at or above capacity in every single school we've built, and gender balance in the classroom is 50%, because at the beginning of the project, we all sign a covenant outlining expectations, and one of ours is that they send their daughters to school in equal numbers with their sons, and they abide. Their word is their bond, and it's powerful. It's a great example.
That was something that really resonated with me when we first started speaking back in 2013. Why do you insist that it's equal numbers of girls as well as boys?
Well, we insist that it's equal number of sons as daughters or daughters as sons, because there's a massive problem with gender discrimination, especially in West Africa where we work, in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Senegal, also in Malawi, and in all countries really, developed or undeveloped. And we want to make sure that girls have equal access to education. And we've thought about building schools just for girls, but we didn't want to isolate girls, and we didn't want to cause a rift in the community because we were only educating girls. So we educate girls in equal numbers with boys. The elders always commit to this in their covenants, and they always stand by it. And so it's a really remarkable statistic because they buy in at the beginning, and it's because their word is their bond.
That's right. So
their promise.
But they stick to their word.
They do.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you said to me, it's 10 years ago now, was the fact that you educate a man, you educate one person, you educate a woman, you educate a whole family.
Yeah. You know, that's not something, an original term that I came up with. It was, I've heard it several times in West Africa. I've heard it from the women.
Yeah.
And it's true. When you educate a girl, you educate a village. You educate a community because they spread the education. They're more responsible about making sure it's distributed equitably and that all people have access. So it's important to educate boys and girls, but girls, they're the linchpin. Women, they hold everything together. They're the cornerstone. They're the foundation for everything we do.
Yeah, absolutely right. My wife would agree.
So would mine.
So getting the school built is one thing, right? You're supplying the skilled labour, they're supplying the unskilled labour. They supply some of the materials, you supply some of the materials. There's the charter, the covenant that everyone signs. So the school gets built, and I find that quite easy to explain when I'm, especially having been there and been through a school build, a groundbreak and a school build, which was incredible. And what people often ask me, they say, well, okay, so building the school is one thing. How do you then make sure that the kids go to school, but in order for the kids to go to school, there needs to be a teacher teaching? How do you make sure that there is a teacher there every day so that classes can be held, so that children can be taught?
Well, that's a great question. And the answer is also very straightforward and simple. So just as we have covenants with communities where we exchange our expectations and commit to each other, a partnership, we have covenants with the ministries of education where they commit to providing the teachers, the curriculum, and the materials if we build the schools, okay? And so we get their commitment before we build schools to providing teachers. And in many cases, they already have teachers in these villages, but they don't have a school. You know, they're going to class in the shade of a mango tree like we talked about yesterday, or sitting in the dirt, you know, under a thatched roof. And it's just not a good, healthy place for the kids to go to school. So it's a great partnership that works. And the other part is that they know if they don't abide by their commitment, the Ministry of Education, we stop building schools in their district. So it's in their best interest to keep providing teachers and as we continue to build the schools.
So who polices it?
Well, there's two answers to that question. First, the community. So the leadership committee of 6 women and 6 men, we built those originally just to run the project, to get the school built. But they have evolved and they run the school themselves. And after we finish building schools, as you know, most of the parents in these villages can't read or write or even sign their own names. They have to thumbprint the covenants. But what we've done is taught locally literate people how to teach and built out some curriculum with them guiding and instructing us on what they wanted to learn, and so that they can learn to read, write, and count over an 18-month period, become certified, and pass an exam.
Are these the after-school classes for the
adults, the
which
parents
I remember
and the grandparents?
we did those in our schools. So in the evenings, the children go home and the parents come in
yes.
to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, so through this program, parents become literate. Most of the time, they want to learn about microenterprise. They want to learn about how to make some money to help lift up their communities. And so at the end of these literacy projects, we give them $700 US seed money. And in 2 years, it turns into an average of $9,000.
That's amazing.
They go to work, they do microloans, but they also invest and make dye fabrics, they make soap, shea butter, expand their gardens, take all this stuff to market and produce, and they open bank accounts, and all the proceeds go to fund the school. So this leadership committee is empowered. And at the end of this process where they become literate, they lobby and advocate very strongly for their communities with the ministries of education. So they are the first part of the answer. They police the
So if a
commitment.
teacher didn't show up on a Monday, the village is going to have something to say about it.
Whereas previously the teacher could say, we have teacher trainings for the next 6 weeks, we'll see you later, when there's no teacher trainings. Now the community members are empowered and they're advocating, and if a teacher talks about that, then they're going to verify, and if they're being taken advantage of, they're going to turn that around.
Excellent.
So that's one way. And then we collect an immense amount of data, as you know. And we collaborate with Salesforce, they're big partners, and we collect data. It's close to real time now in the villages. And through this data, we're able to see how many students are going to school, how many girls are going to school, how many boys are going to school on a regular basis. Then we take our teams out and we do audits on a biannual basis at a minimum. And we do this in part because we want to collect the data and share it with our stakeholders, but also because sometimes we'll go back and build second schools or third schools, depending on how many kids there are. The project we talked about yesterday where they had 600 kids, well, one school for 150 kids is not enough. Mm-hmm. So if they're sending their daughters to school in equal numbers with their sons, we'll go back. If they contributed fully in the building of the school, we'll go back. And so we collect that information so that we can make a good decision on whether we should go build a second school or not.
Very good. And I think the other thing that people ask me, what are they being taught? Who sets the curriculum? And that is set by the local ministry, is it?
That is correct, yeah.
Right.
And we were intentional about that, my brother and I, 32 years ago when we started buildOn. And it had some unintended positive consequences. And so our reasons for not originally wanting to influence curriculum are because we didn't want to project our standards on the communities and the cultures and the countries where we were working. We also didn't want our culture to overly influence. We didn't want our culture to influence the community at all, actually. And so we wanted to step back so that the community could guide and decide how they wanted and what they wanted to educate their children with. So that was the original reason, and what we found over time is that it's one of the reasons that our projects are so successful and the communities are so independent without us after we build a school, because they become advocates, and the Ministry of Education is in a position where they have to do what they're committed to do. So a lot of other NGOs will do teacher trainings, provide teachers, fund teachers, do all sorts of things, NGOs from around the world, but not necessarily that country. And there's positives to that model. We chose not to go that way. And one of the positive unintended outcomes is that it doesn't disempower the ministries from doing what they're supposed to do in the first place. And lots of studies have been done now, and really there have been mistakes made because NGOs take over the responsibilities of the ministries of education, and so the ministries step back, and then when the NGOs pull out, the educational system collapses.
That's why I love your model. I mean, your
It's our models, Stefan. It's our model together with you. I mean, honestly, and what I love about what you and your family have done is that you've gone into the communities. And it's one thing for us to have a conversation like this, and we're very transparent, and all the data that we collect is readily available, but transparency is only so good. What you did is take it a step further and immerse yourselves and live with a community and work side by side with them to actually build the school. So you go beyond transparency and into solidarity and deeper connection with the community. So you can see for yourself how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
And anybody can.
And anyone that's
we encourage
anyone
everybody
that's
to
watching
do it.
this.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about that in a minute, because I know that part of our next phase of the 100 Schools project is to encourage businesses to take teams out to build schools and families to do what we did as a family and go out and build a school. But I'll come back to that in a moment, because just going back to what you were saying just now, by creating independence or helping these people be completely independent, you're removing any dependencies, aren't you? And I think it's when you have that independence, removing dependencies, was really just sort of going through my head when you were speaking just now, and how powerful that is. So you can you can initiate the project. You talked about ignition yesterday, and you go and the school gets built, and then you're stepping back. And I remember when we first went to when we did our school build in Malawi as a family back in 2014. On the way to the village where we were going to build a school, we stopped at a village where a school had been built many years before, and you'd originally built one school block, and now there was 3 school blocks, right? Mm-hmm. So that independence and that community, does that happen often where?
It does. The last time I was in Senegal, and in Senegal you can see forever. There's just the occasional baobab tree, so you get the broad horizon. It's not like Malawi, which is more mountainous. I would look off and see a cluster of schools 5 kilometers off the road. And I could see clearly that one of them's a buildOn school, but the other 3 have nothing to do with it. You know, and I said to our country director, Hassan, that's a buildOn school, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, why would we build a school when they already have 3 schools? And he's like, no, we built the school and then they built the other 3. Yeah. And I was like, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I should know that.
It's amazing.
But I saw that all over Senegal, and we've concentrated, the work so that we can see what's happening in the spark, the ignition that's happening, the ignition that happened because of you. I mean, in that first school, now there's 23 more.
Yeah.
And we're just getting started.
We're just getting started. So it's interesting. So when you said, I should remember the number, 2,354. 54.
Very good. So, but it's changing all the time. We have 50 to 60 schools under construction every day.
Yeah, and we funded another 3 yesterday.
Which is awesome. Thank you.
So essentially, when you give me that number, the 2,354, is that schools built by buildOn, or is that, so that village where there's now 4, are you counting 1 or 4?
Only 1.
Ah, right.
We have helped to build 2,354 schools. The other schools that have been built because of those schools is probably well over 10,000. But I don't have we haven't counted that.
Yeah.
We should. We're gonna. I like that.
Because I'm very much into, my whole business is all about empowerment.
Can I borrow your pen? I want to write that down. Is this okay if I
Yes,
take
absolutely.
a quick note?
So we talk about our business is about empowerment, and that's what I love about the impact here. You're empowering the community to build a school and making the first one possible. The 4 would not exist without the 1. So actually the true impact of what's happening is
multiplied.
Yeah, I mean you're the ignition behind 10,000 schools having just done 2,354 there. I can remember the number now.
You are very generous in saying yours to me. And Stefan, I think I have almost nothing to do with it personally. And even as an organization, I got to be completely candid. It's not about buildOn, it's about the communities. It's their school.
Really important. I say to friends, to family, and people that are now interested in the 100 Schools project, I explain how taking my family out to build a school in 2014 in Malawi was absolutely the best educational experience that we gave our children. So Oli was with us then, and we sent our children, all 3 of them went to good schools, had great educations. But if I had to, as a parent, identify, what was one of my best acts of parenting, and what was one of the best education experiences we gave our children, it was going to build that school in Malawi. It changed the way they think about a number of things. It's had a profound impact on their ability to, you're going for a university interview. They say, hey, tell me something interesting that you've done with your life. Well, went to Malawi and built a school, sort of conversation's over, right? So, it was how, and I'm so pleased we did it when Oli was alive, because it was that sort of an incredibly unifying experience as a family. And I know you've seen this happen many, many times on treks. So I'd just like to, my quest for impact with the 100 schools is linked to us wanting to have as many families as possible go and experience what we experienced as a family.
Thank you.
And that's led me to realize, especially in the work that we do within businesses and within the hospitality sector and within the SME sector, having business owners and business leaders and business teams go and build a school together. The meeting I was in just before I came here, I said a team that builds a school together stays together, which they thought was humorous. But I said it's absolutely true. I mean, if you have that shared experience, the impact is huge. So it would just be helpful just to cover a little bit about a trek, how a trek functions, why you created the trek experience.
Great. Well, those are two great questions. We take teams of up to 18 people out to live in a village and complete immersion and paired off and living with host families, oftentimes in mud brick huts with dirt floors, living with community members, working side by side with the parents and the grandparents to help build a school.
That's what we did.
That's what you did. And it starts with the final community meeting before ground break, where the community, it's a big celebration. There's singing and dancing and drumming, and then we sign the covenant. Everybody signs. You sign, buildOn signs, the community signs, everybody signs this covenant. The next day we break ground and start really digging the foundation for the school. We mix all the concrete. Once the foundation is dug, we tie the rebar together and we put the foundation in, and we start to build the walls. And the Trek team, like your family and other companies, families and then companies that have gone with us to build schools, they're only in the village for about a week.
Yeah.
And that's by design. We only want to have foreign presence for 1 week of the project because we don't ever want the community to think that they didn't run that project, that it wasn't theirs, right? It's paramount that the community understand that they built that school, okay? So we get to go in there, and I'm headed to Senegal, in a couple of days to do this, spend 2 weeks in a village, and whenever I go into the village, and whatever group I'm with, they always go in thinking, they're going to be able to share, they're going to be able to impart, they're going to be able to give, which they do. But what really happens, and I think you'll agree, is
I know what you're going to say.
It's the other way around.
Yeah.
It's the community that shares. It's the community that lifts. It's they give us. It's a cliche, but it's true for us. These communities give us more than we can possibly share.
Yeah.
With their sense of commitment and solidarity. It's unprecedented. Anywhere in the United States, that I've been.
It was humbling. I remember saying, that they have very little, or in some cases they have nothing, but they give you everything. I remember
the generosity.
Yeah. I remember waking up in the morning.
It's humbling.
Well, you wake up when it gets light, because everyone wakes up when it gets light. And I remember sort of peeling myself off my thin mat in a mud hut, and realizing it was time to sort of freshen up, ready for the school build, and going out, and there was in a sort of a mud walled, for privacy, I guess, like a shower area, there was a big pot of hot water. So I'm there scooping out the hot water with a ceramic mug and throwing it on and a bit of soap and washing down. And I learned later that morning that a young girl had got up an hour and a half before my shower to walk to the nearest water hole to get the water in the dark so that I could have a warm shower. I mean, stuff like that. It was just little moments like that were, they're very defining. Very defining.
They really are. When we celebrated our 25th anniversary, which was back in 2016, our board asked me to create a vision for the next 25 years. And I thought that was preposterous. Honestly, I thought, we didn't have a vision for the first 25. I mean, this. It was survival, literally. Not just financially, but physically for those first couple of years. And we learned so much from the communities. Everything we learned came from the experiences that they shared with us. And that's how we built our methodology. And I was so reluctant because, well, I don't want to rob the next generation of leadership from their opportunities to learn from the community. But I didn't have a choice. They said, okay, appreciate that, but do it anyway. So we did, and there were two things, big things that came out of it. They were right, I was wrong. It was a good idea. So one of the things is that, and this was a debate, a big debate on the board. When I came back to them, I said, in 2041, which would be our 50th anniversary, I said, I don't want us to be in 30 countries and 45 U.S. cities doing what we do. I want us to be in the same 8 countries, in the same 6 U.S. cities, and we scale deep so that we build schools in 30% of the villages in each of these 8 countries, because we've seen that ignition effect that we just talked about, right? So if we get to this tipping point of 30%, we believe that by 2041, every girl and every boy in each of these 8 countries are going to have a seat in the school that their parents built. And that's powerful. I mean, because that's a massive multiplied effect, and it contributes to huge systemic lift. Think about the socioeconomics.
Well, I was talking to a dear man that was helping us after we lost Oli. He's a Tibetan monk called Bob. And I was speaking to Bob about what we were doing in building schools, and he says, you're not building schools. Very calm. He says, I think words are important. He said, you are transforming the trajectories of communities and countries through education. And he said, words are important. And I said, Bob, that's amazing. I was very humbled. And it's so true, isn't it? I mean, you talk about going deeper.
Yeah.
You are transforming the trajectory of a country.
Rewriting history. One thing I wanted to add about Trek, though, is now a lot of corporate partners are going out and building schools. And we just recently had a C-suite person from Citi take his team to Senegal to build a school, right? And we've had high-level executives from Salesforce, from GE, from McKinsey, all, these, and they're calling it leadership development. And ultimately, it really is. And we had the CEO of McKinsey Global, a guy named Dominic Barton, who came and did an immersion with us and came away from it. And he said it in front of 1,000 people, that for every day I talk to 2 different CEOs about leadership. I make it a point of it. That's my job. I realized I've been talking to the wrong people. We got to talk to the people in the communities about leadership. And so this happened about 5 years ago, and it's at the same time we're recasting or building out that vision. And so our board said, what are the main lessons that you learned from these first 25 years? And out of that came what we call the 5 constructive leadership principles. And one of them's empathy, walking in the shoes of others, understanding, where they're coming from, which is a very important skill. That's the number one reason Salesforce partners with buildOn, because they want their team members to be more empathetic. Number 2 is courage. Knowing when you've just got to step up and take risk, calculated risk, hopefully, to get the job done. And the 3rd is resilience. Just that refusal to quit, never giving up. And the 4th is passion for the possible, which you were born with, and all of them, of course, but passion for the possible, just hope. Seeing something that's not yet there and helping people get to that place. And then the 5th is solidarity, together. Because that's the biggest lesson we learned, is we could never do anything for people, only with people. And so we've built out, in partnership with McKinsey, we built out a curriculum so that we're just about to launch it in our Trek programs, so that while you're doing Trek, we can focus on and flesh out these principles so that it's something you can take back and share out with your partners. So
fantastic. I would love to talk to you more about that.
We'd love to
Yeah.
get you involved in it, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to add.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to comment on before we wrap, we work in some of the most radically difficult places on the planet. In Haiti is one of the most earthquake-prone places in the world. In 2010, the most devastating earthquake in recorded history happened there. 260,000 people lost their lives. Wow. In 2022, there was an even more severe earthquake in Haiti, and it was shallower. So it was more powerful and shallower, which is far more dangerous. And ground zero was right in the middle of our impact area. Do you know how many of our schools collapsed? 0.
Why?
Well, we build good schools, but also because we've worked with Architects Without Borders, we've worked with engineers to build schools that are earthquake resistant. There's no such building that's completely earthquake proof. I mean, tragically, 2,000 or 3,000 people died, but not 260,000, because that first earthquake in 2010 was in Port-au-Prince.
Right.
This was out in a remote area where we work, so there were less buildings collapsing. Anyway, they were using our structures primarily as rescue centers, places to bring people, and they're also built to withstand Category 5 hurricanes. And so Haiti, sadly, it gets hit by a Category 5 every 1 or 2 years. And so they use these schools that they build as shelters. Oftentimes, every home is demolished, and people are sleeping in the classrooms until they're able to rebuild. So and of course, that too is all on the community. It's because of them. And so, there will be an occasional wall that'll collapse, but the schools never collapse.
Even more impact.
Yeah, except that one where the landslide took it down.
Jim, thank you very much. It's going to be great. I know it's always inspirational. I'm really looking forward to continuing the journey with you. We're on 24 built, another 3 funded yesterday. We're going to do the 100 together. And
well, Stefan, let me just say thank you on behalf of buildOn, on behalf of generations of children whose life has been changed, whose trajectory has changed. You've rewritten history for them with your leadership.
It was Oli. It was Oli.
Oli's rewritten history.
Yeah.
You and your family and the stakeholders that you've collected and the movement that you've built. So, Stefan, thank you. God bless you. We're so grateful for you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.